All right, so I'm up in San Francisco and I'm here to see the show at Studio Gallery, but I want to do a painting first because the wind is picking up. It's going to get really windy, so I want to paint and then we'll go see the show. But I'm just kind of looking around. I'm at the corner of Jones and Pacific and I'm trying to find something to paint. Let me show you some options. I have painted this view here several times. There's like a corner store here. You can see the Bay Bridge off in the distance. So one downside painting that view is that it's really windy in that location and I would have to stand in the street to paint. So I'm gonna look for something else. Also too, I'd like to do something new, like maybe challenge myself to do a composition that's different from what I normally do. All right, so this is the view looking south. And typically if I do a painting like this, I like there to be shadows on the street, but it's about noon right now, so the shadows are not very interesting. Although there's some nice glare off of the windshields. I could possibly do something with the top portion of this building here. I like the simplicity and also the kind of the interesting geometry. I don't know if you noticed, like there's a lot of warm reflected light underneath the eaves. Another thing I like about this subject is it's unusual for me, so it's going to present some new challenges. So even if the painting fails, I'm gonna probably learn something in the process. Also, there's a shady spot to set up. You can see the shadow here. This shadow is gonna be moving in this direction. So eventually this will be in the light, but for now, this is kind of a nice protected spot to paint this building. I'm going to do a 14 by 14 inch panel today. Obviously the drawing on this is pretty technical and I'm trying to make sure that, you know, all the lines line up. Like for example, there's a line that goes through this way right here, and then there's the bump out in the roof. Same thing, there's a line that runs through, and then a bump out over here. Kind of mapped out where the shadows are. Shadows are moving pretty quickly. I'm gonna try to capture those. And then also it's interesting to look at how dark in value the sky is. So gotta make sure I get the values correct here. Okay, so I'm gonna use my typical dark mixture for some of the darker windows. This is alizarin crimson and ultramarine blue, thinned with some liquid and a bit of odorless mineral spirits. So I'd rather overshoot the edges with these windows and then kind of come back and carve them out, if that makes sense. All right, so for the shadow colors on the building, I'm using a mixture of dioxazine purple, and I'm kind of dulling it down or graying it down using yellow ochre. And as you can see, my palette's a mid-tone gray, so I'm kind of going with a mid-tone for the shadows. So I want them to be light enough that I can see some color in there. And I just want to get the basic shapes first, and I can come in and look for delicate shifts later. Okay, so for the sky, I'm going with a mixture of ultramarine and titanium white. And I think I want this to be a mid-tone or close to it as well. That's a little lighter than mid-tone. So maybe we'll go with something like that. Okay, so there's a lot of warmth up in those eaves, a lot of yellow, because the sunlight is being reflected off the ground and then it bounces up onto the eaves. So I've taken my dioxazine mix here, dioxazine with yellow ochre, and I'm adding a bit more yellow ochre to it to make it warmer and more in the yellow direction. And you can see where I'm leaving the light along this edge here. I can judge that this value, I mean, it's pretty close. I probably could go a little darker with it, but I can adjust that. And I'm not looking for any details in these eaves right now. I can kind of suggest that, you know, after I get the big shape blocked in. Okay. So already getting a decent light effect right here, and there are some little pops of light along the outer edge of the roof that I'll try to reintroduce those. Okay, so I'm gonna stop here. I think there's some cool stuff going on up in these eaves here, but the geometry of this thing is so difficult just to kind of sketch out. All right, so there's a new show opening at Studio Gallery today. It's called Delicious. I have 2 pieces in the show, so let's go have a look. Okay, so as I mentioned, the biggest challenge with this painting was just getting the drawing right. I spent probably 3 or 4 times the amount of time that I spend on a typical painting, like say a landscape painting, just to make sure all these, you know, shapes were in line, and still it's a little bit wonky. But, you know, I had to work quickly because these shadows were disappearing, and the main thing that I was after was having a convincing feeling of light. So I do feel like it does have that. There's nice light in this, and then also, you know, nice reflected light up into the eaves. I did put little suggestions for some of the detail work up there, and there again, there's some warms and cools in the eaves. I put the little highlights on the edges of the roof as well. I think that the values are good, like the value of the sky. I definitely made it darker than I would under normal circumstances, just because I wanted to make sure the relationship between the light on the edge of the roof and the sky was correct. I mean, if the sky was too light, you wouldn't get this strong you know, pops of light along the edge. So overall, a fun experiment, and I don't know that I would do this kind of composition again. Maybe, who knows? But like I said, I do feel like I learned, and I had a good time doing it. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'll put a link down below to the show at Studio Gallery. Also, if you'd like to see some extra videos and help support the channel, I'll put a Patreon link down below as well. Thanks for hanging out, stay creative, and I'll see you guys in the next video.